All right, let's do this. We as individuals have the capacity to rise above anything with the right amount of conviction and the right perspectives. I truly believe that. I wouldn't be able to do the work I do if I didn't believe that as my fundamental belief. We can take anything and everything and use it to become more. All the guys around me were drinking a lot, and I got caught up in that for many years. And then I looked for a mentor around me who wasn't drinking, and it wasn't happening. I didn't see anyone not drinking. But that was something I began to understand I had to do for myself. I had to go first on that one. He was actually a life coach. And he said something interesting to me is like, if you never had mentors growing up, if you can see that the people around you weren't great mentors growing up, or you felt that you never had the mentor you wanted, then that awareness is all you need. Welcome to episode 2 of the Life Reinvention Chats with Nash Mackey. The intro episode, but in particular, if you haven't checked out episode 1, I think you might get some value from checking that out, and it will add to this conversation we're going to have today. For those of you who don't know me, again, my name is Nash Mackey. I'm a rapid breakthrough coach to high performers all around the world. You can find out more about what I do at nashmackey.com. So, without further ado, let's get into today's topic. Today, we are talking about what to do if you didn't have strong role models growing up. Or maybe you're watching this and you are at that age where you would love a role model, but the people around you, you can see might not be the greatest influences. And if that's your reality right now in your situation, I just want to acknowledge you and say that is phenomenal that you are looking to take things to the next level in your mentorship, and that you also believe that there's more to life than maybe what the people around you are doing. That requires a certain level of bravery to even admit that, because it's so easy to fit in or try and fit into the crowd. That's a natural instinct we have as humans, to try and be like the people around us. So if you're saying, hey, I can see the people around me, but I'm really not vibing with the way they're showing up, you're going to go far in life. You just got to keep going. That would be my encouragement. And this episode is really going to support you as well. So if you grew up without great examples of what it means to be a great human, then let me first of all begin by saying that awareness in itself is a reason why you get to have it never be an excuse for you not to do well. Now, hopefully I said in what I just said what I mean to say. What I mean by that is, if you can see that the people around you weren't great mentors growing up, or you felt that you never had the mentor you wanted, then that awareness is all you need. Great. You can see that. And so my question to you is, what are you going to do about it? Because if you can see that and you use that as an excuse not to do well in life, then guess what? Regardless of what those people did around you, you're not much better than them. You're operating on probably similar level. But if you can see, this goes back to what I said on the 0 episode, if you want to call it that. I mentioned how if you can see something as an issue and you're waiting for everyone else to do something about it, but you're not willing to do something about yourself, then I don't know if hypocrite's the right word, but that's the word that's coming to mind. Maybe you're being that. And any of us could do that if we're not acting proactively, if we can see something needs fixing and we're not willing to do it. So if you could see that you didn't have mentors, the first thing I would say is, what did you want in a mentor growing up? Now, when I say mentor, it might have been a parent figure. It might have been someone who you wanted to look up to. You hear other people having these dads who went and did these big things in life and they were these sorts of role models for them. And you hear that and you're like, man, why didn't I get that? I missed out. Or mum being like this particular type of incredible businesswoman, or mum at home, or whatever she did. Or you like, you hear this stuff and you feel like there's a void inside of you. That is important to address, because otherwise you'll carry that around with you and you'll feel that you somehow got ripped off. And that energy is not a good energy to proceed through life with. So here's something to consider. If you didn't have a great role model, get clear on what you feel like you missed out on. What do you feel like you missed out on? Or if you're in this right now as a younger individual, what do you feel like you're missing out on? What would you want if the ultimate mentor existed? Who would they be? How would they be? What would they be? What would they be doing? I heard this from one of my mates growing up. He was someone who I kind of took notice of a little bit later in my teenage years, like just before my 20s, in fact. And he was actually a life coach. And he said something interesting to me is like, if you never had mentors growing up, then it's important you become the mentor that you never had to yourself. And I liked that idea. I didn't fully wrap my head around it at the time, but I think it's actually a super cool and solid idea. So I actually did that for myself a lot, because I felt it could have been my own projection, probably was, but I never felt like the guys I was hanging around with quite had that mentorship quality that I was looking for. And I wanted to I wanted to find something that was maybe a little bit more than some of them were doing. And I couldn't quite find it. And so I decided to do my best to become it. For example, all the guys around me were drinking a lot. And I got caught up in that for many years. And then I looked for a mentor around me who wasn't drinking, and it wasn't happening. I didn't see anyone not drinking. But that was something I began to understand I had to do for myself. I had to go first on that one, at least in my circles. And that really served me. And I got to see, all right, if it's important to me, I get to do it because I'm the one with the level of awareness. And since I made that decision, I have had dozens and dozens of guys in my circles just change up the habit of drinking, stop the habit of drinking completely in some cases, as I have now for close to 6 years. And that's been pretty cool to witness. I haven't had conversations with them. It just happens at times through osmosis, through just being that kind of person and surrounding yourself with others. I often remind people, like we often hear the idea that we become like the 5 people we hang around. Well, remember also that 5 people are hanging around you. And so they become like you. So not only do you become like them, they become like you, in case the point's not clear yet. So if you haven't had that mentor, you get to become them if it's really important to you. And it's important to note in your mind that the voids we have, which in other words, the things that you feel are missing, you can even see that they're missing because on some level they're important to you. And so if they're important to you, it's more important not to deprive yourself of. So that could look like giving yourself the gift of saying, all right, I know that the ultimate mentor I would have might be, for example, exercising every single day, might be someone who gives me a pat on the back and encourages me and calls me forward and holds me accountable. Well, guess what? You can do all of that stuff for yourself. You can do that for yourself. And that is a gift. And if you can't do it for yourself, which is also something that might be important to acknowledge, because there are times in our life where we genuinely need other people to help us up. You go and get the support. You go and find people who can support you with that and fill that role for you and support you Learn how to do it yourself. Maybe there's also certain words that you would love to have heard from a role model growing up, or a parent, or someone like that, someone who you look up to, but you never heard it. Well, guess what? You have the ability to speak, or at least to think. You get to go and think these thoughts or these phrases to yourself and say them to yourself. Why wait? In fact, the most powerful words we can ever hear are the words we say to ourselves. Someone can be telling you, here's something important to understand. Someone can be standing there telling you all the best things in the world about yourself, but if you don't believe it to be true, you won't let it in. So part of us needs to believe it's true. How do we believe it's true? Well, we get to say it to ourselves first. We get to start giving ourselves that little bit of oxygen. It's important to get that you can do this and you don't have to wait. And that if you can see it as something that's important, then you get to be the leader. So going a little bit deeper into this conversation now, if you look back on your childhood and the way you grew up, and you say, hey, I never had great people around me. All the people around me were bums. They were just idiots. And like, that's sort of the dialogue that's going on in your head. And that feels like something that's holding you back in life. Again, that awareness gets to be what sets you free. That awareness is everything. But the other thing is, it's important to say, or rather to acknowledge the fact that if you feel like no one was doing anything right, then it's probably coming from a quite limited perspective. There tends to always be someone doing something right. And even if it's not other people, it might very well be ourselves. And so if you look back on times in your life and you're like, everyone around me were acting like absolute idiots. I had no one around me who was a great influence. Well, the fact again that you could see that means that maybe you were the great influence. And so you get to have gratitude for yourself. It's worth asking yourself and considering, was there anyone who was there for you on some level? Was there anyone? And this could have been that kind teacher you had at school. It could have been that gym teacher or that person at the shop. I don't know. Look at your entire childhood and do your best to extract some light from it, is what I'm getting at, essentially. And what that means is really being honest with yourself and move out of any sort of exaggerated victimhood where you're saying it was all bad, all negative. And I do want to put a little kind of caveat there that, yeah, I get that so many of us as humans have experienced really intense things. And some humans I speak to have experienced things beyond my comprehension of quite what humans are capable of, as far as just crazy stuff that humans do. Like sometimes my mind is very much so opened up to, wow, disempowered humans are capable of some pretty horrific stuff. Like, but the great news is humans have the capacity, we as individuals have the capacity to rise above anything with the right amount of conviction and the right perspectives. I truly believe that. I wouldn't be able to do the work I do if I didn't believe that as my fundamental belief. We can take anything and everything and use it to become more, to be more, to live more. I truly believe that. But despite what your childhood was, who was there for you? Who, if anyone, had your back? It might have just been yourself. It might have been someone in a book you read or a movie you watched, but it was someone who gave you a bit of hope. And the reason I'm getting a little bit nitpicky here is because what I'm doing on the deepest level is I'm actually challenging your thinking and opening your thinking up to the fact that there more than likely was someone who was there for you. Could have been yourself, could have been others. It could have been someone who was actually in your vicinity, like a real person, or it could have been someone virtual or someone in a book or a movie or a cartoon, someone who gave you hope, someone who gave you or supported you meet some of those needs you have. So look at that and give yourself a bit of oxygen, essentially. That's what comes from doing that. And then you realize, oh, wow, there was something there that I haven't seen up until now. There's something there. There was something. Life was giving me a life raft or an inflatable device to pull myself out of the water. And it kept me going. That was the thing. And so straight away, when you see that, you'll find that you have a little bit of gratitude. And that little bit of gratitude can be enough. That can be that little sip of air when you felt like you've been drowning because it's never been enough or was never like at the level you want. Like that little bit of awareness, if you get what I just said, and you can see that there was something there, that can be enough. That can be life-saving, in fact. And then you can focus on that and highlight that. Oh my goodness, I had that character. Used to watch Batman, or I used to watch this, and they would be the thing that would get me through. Or like, just look. And again, it could have just been yourself. The fact that you kept going despite all of that. And you can have gratitude for yourself. And I would say, despite what you've gone through, have gratitude for yourself because the truth is you have gotten through it. You have done that. So I don't believe there's such a thing as a perfect childhood. And Disney's done a wonderful job of confusing people and selling people on this idea that childhood is meant to be this particular way. Like, have you found someone yet who's had a perfect childhood, or is it just your perceptions that, oh, they had it so much better than me? I don't know. Doing the work I do, I'm yet to find someone who has the perfect childhood with that perfect loving mum and dad and the perfect like little house situation going on. Yeah, there can be there, and I know a lot of incredible parents who are working on themselves and doing their best to pass down wisdom rather than wounds. I get that. That's happening a lot now, and I'm so grateful to live in a time where there's so much awareness around that. But everyone is flawed as humans, like even those parents who have done so much work, myself included. I still have those moments where I respond in a way that's less than ideal, and I'm like, oh man, like that was here's what I meant by that. I didn't mean to respond like that. And I'll go and find myself having these conversations with my kids because I'm exhausted or whatever, like the human experience. And even after all the work I've done, like that still happens. And I know some incredible coaches who are far beyond me and childhood psychologists, in fact, people who are in this work. Like, and if anyone's out there saying, I'm doing it perfectly, honestly, they're full of shit, quite frankly. Like, they're not honest. Like, no one of us is doing it perfectly. And please don't be the first perfect human on the planet. You'll be so lonely. That's a great little ideology that I got from one of my mentors uh, training with her. And I love that. Like, there's no such thing as a perfect human. And that's not to say we shouldn't strive for a high level of perfection, or at least, I don't know if high level of perfection is the right term, but we shouldn't be striving for being the best versions of ourselves we can possibly be. I think that's important. But expecting or thinking that other people had it so much better than us and that they had it perfect, I promise you that's just not true. That's not true. And if your mind's trying to convince you of that, then you're living in an illusion, quite frankly. And it's important, again, that awareness can give you some liberation and can give you some breathing room, which is really important. So we've all had our stuff. We've all had our challenges, some people more intensely than others. And again, if you're going through that realization, like, wow, my childhood seems a lot more intense than other people, then guess what? You are someone who has chosen to lift more weight than other humans. And what comes with lifting more weight? Well, more strength, more resilience. The further out you've been on an extreme, the more magnificent the breakthrough will be. So, for example, if you've been in extreme poverty, then when you experience having even a small amount of money, that is so incredible. It's such a big difference because you've been out on the spectrum. Same with being, incredibly overweight. If you've ever experienced having like a particular challenge with your health, even an illness, and you've grown up with that or you've had that, and then you've learned to overcome it, that like just sort of average health just feels incredible. So the further out you've been, the more magnificent the breakthrough, and the more you've probably become aware of and learned that you can take with you and move forward. I hope that perspective brings you some hope. And I sincerely hope that you've got some value from what I've spoken about here today. If you have, I would love to hear in the chat below. What have you taken away from this conversation? These first 2 episodes have naturally progressed toward childhood. I guess that's an important place to start because we all have one. We all were once children. And I am a big believer that as the saying goes, I believe it's Robin Sharma, the leadership coach, who says, we are every age we've ever been. We're every age we've ever been right now. Yes, you are a particular age, but you're an accumulation of all the other ages you've been, and you get to revisit that past self. You get to go back or really become someone now, be someone now, and inspire that past version of yourself. That is possible. I see people doing it every day. It's completely possible for you. So if you've taken value from this, please drop a comment below. Please like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the Life Reinvention Chats.